I live in a condominium where animals are allowed, but one day my neighbor decided that my dog was scaring the children. She tried everything. She filed complaints, spread rumors, and even tried to change the building's rules. But when the management found out that she was lying, it was a real terror. If there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that people never know how to keep quiet. If something doesn't directly affect their lives, they still make a point of interfering just to make sure the world keeps going the way they want it to. This is exactly what happened when I, Olivia Reynolds, moved into a new condominium with my dog Bentley, a golden retriever weighing almost 90 pounds, the most docile being on the face of the earth. He didn't bark for nothing, he didn't bite anyone, he didn't cause a fuss, but of course that didn't matter to the creature that lived next door to my house. I'd moved to Lakeside Gardens after my divorce, looking for a fresh start in a pet-friendly community where Bentley and I could both thrive. Little did I know that my seemingly perfect new home would soon become a battleground. The first time she appeared was on a seemingly normal morning. Mrs. Patricia Wilkinson, or Patty as she insisted everyone call her while simultaneously demanding respect, appeared out of nowhere like an NPC programmed to give you a headache. She had the posture of someone who thinks she's in charge of the whole neighborhood. Her arms crossed, her eyes squinted, ready to unload a list of demands. Your dog needs to get out of here," was the first thing out of her mouth. No introduction, no good morning, nothing. I stood there processing the level of absurdity I was hearing. I looked over at Bentley, who was lying on the grass belly up, waiting for a cuddle, clearly a bloodthirsty monster. I took a deep breath and asked, just to give her a chance to say something that made sense. "What do you mean?" Patty snorted impatiently. "He's very big. The children on the estate get scared." I looked around. The only fear I saw was that of a little 4-year-old girl who was petting Bentley while holding a lollipop in her other hand. If that was fear, then I was an astronaut. Just as this bizarre exchange was happening, I noticed a man in his early 30s walking toward us with a camera hanging around his neck. He slowed his pace, clearly observing the interaction. "Excuse me," he said, approaching us. I couldn't help overhearing. "I'm James Chun from 12B. I'm actually a professional dog photographer, and I have to say, your Golden is one of the gentlest I've seen." He knelt down, and Bentley immediately rolled over for belly rubs. "Real threat to society you've got here," he added with a wink. Patty's face contorted like she'd just bitten into a lemon. "Well, you weren't here yesterday when he was barking and jumping at the fence." "Actually, I was," James replied calmly. "I was photographing birds by the pond. Your dog was asleep on the porch most of the afternoon." At that moment, I realized that this wasn't going to be a rational conversation. Patty didn't want a solution. She wanted to be in charge. The problem? I wasn't going to let her. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that the more you ignore someone who wants attention, the more they freak out, and this woman was about to collapse. After the first ridiculous conversation about Bentley scaring the children, I just got on with my life. I wasn't going to argue with someone who had clearly invented a problem out of thin air. I thought that would be enough for her to give up, but no, she decided to double down. The first sign that war was declared came 2 days later. I came home and found a piece of paper stuck to my gate. It was an official complaint to the condominium manager. The reason? Large animal posing a safety risk to resident safety. Bentley, who at that very moment was rolling around in the grass, trying to bite his own tail, was apparently the biggest danger in this neighborhood. I tore up that paper on the spot, but little did I know that it was only the beginning. James texted me that evening. "Heads up, Patty's cornering people by the mailboxes, telling them your dog tried to attack her daughter." I set the record straight, but not everyone is listening. The following week, she started recruiting allies. Suddenly, some of the neighbors started looking at me funny, as if I was raising a Bengal tiger in their backyard. Some even came over to comment in a polite way. So I hear your dog can be dangerous." Wow. I saw some messages in the condominium group about a very large animal running loose around here. And guess who was spreading those messages? That's right. What made this particularly maddening was that Bentley actually had his canine good citizen certification. He'd been through extensive training, and I had the documents to prove it. But facts didn't matter to Patty. She was on a mission. Then came the final blow. She decided to get the condominium management involved. One morning, an employee knocked on my door with the expression of someone who had been forced out of bed earlier than he wanted. He explained that he had received several complaints about my dog and that he needed to investigate. Obviously, the complaint had come from Patty, but I wanted to see how far it went. So I called the employee in and let him investigate himself. Bentley, Being the real serial killer, she said did what any friendly dog would do. He licked the man's shoe, wagged his tail, and brought him a toy. The employee laughed. Well, I'll put in the report that he seems calm. Calm? Calmer than this woman's nerves. When she saw that her plan had failed, when he left. There she was standing on the sidewalk with that "it's not over yet" look on her face. She crossed her arms and let out in the most venomous tone possible, "Do you think you've won?" I didn't answer. I just smiled and threw a little ball for Bentley to fetch, and that's how I discovered that she hadn't yet reached the maximum level of madness. That evening, I heard a knock at my door. It was James, looking concerned. "I overheard Patty at the community center," he said, lowering his voice even though we were inside. "She's planning to gather signatures to change the pet policy. She wants to ban dogs over 30 pounds. My heart sank. This was escalating beyond a personal vendetta. Now she was trying to change rules that would affect multiple residents. Bentley, sensing my distress, came over and rested his head on my lap. "Don't worry," James said. "I'm already counteracting it. I've started a pet owners group chat. There are at least 15 other large dog owners here who will fight this." Patty could have accepted defeat, but no. If there's one thing this kind of person can't stand, it's losing a fight they've invented themselves. And since she couldn't convince me that Bentley was a walking danger, she decided to create evidence. The first sign that things were getting out of hand came when I received a report from the condominium saying that my dog had attacked someone. That's right, Bentley. The golden retriever who was afraid of thunder and ran away from vacuum cleaners was now an aggressive animal. I took the paper and went straight to the landlord's office. My patience already at an all-time low. James, who'd become something of an ally in this bizarre battle, offered to come with me. "I've got video of Bentley from that day," he explained. "I was testing a new lens in the courtyard." As soon as we entered, the property manager, Mr. Hernandez, sighed deeply and picked up another sheet of paper from the desk. "You need to see this." And there was a supposed official report from a resident saying that my dog had lunged at her and nearly knocked her over. I didn't even have to ask who had written it. What shocked me most was the creativity. Patty had written a real horror movie script. She described how she almost fell to.